We worked a lot with Disney. That was our number one client. So they have 100% control. We didn't do anything without Disney giving us, they were, I remember on their end, they had three different people that had to always give us the thumbs up and they all had to agree. And then, for example, like with the Mary Poppins that had Emily Blunt, I don't know if you remember that movie, came out a few years ago. So with that one, they came to us with that one and said like whatever you want to do, like nothing is off the table. We have Emily Blunt and Lin-Manuel for an entire 12 hours to shoot whatever we want.
Today on Lava Journal, we are diving into the world of film advertising with Gerardo Lara, who has created promotional campaigns for blockbusters like Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor, and Avatar. In our conversation, we'll explore the creative process behind movie advertising and the challenges of post-production. I am very thankful to you to join this podcast, especially on Sunday. I don't often meet persons who begin the career early from university and continues working in this industry. Why did you decide to work in this industry?
Yeah, it's like, why do you choose this, right? This crazy. Yeah. When I was young, actually, I always had like an imagination, and me and my friends would run around and, just go play outside and things like that. And when I was young, my uncle actually got me a camcorder, and, he was just like, hey, why don't you just, have fun, go film things? And I just did it for fun. And before I knew it, I started writing all these like short skits and these things for me and my friends to go film, and we kept doing it. And before I knew it, I was like, oh, you can go to school for this, like this can be a real job. And I got super excited, and I even sent it to some colleges that I applied to, and they were like, I mean, these are not great, but you got passion. So yeah, it was just me running around with friends having a camcorder, and it turned into a passion and a career.
Many industry professionals I speak with have educational backgrounds unrelated to their current field. Unlike them, you completed a specialized education in film and video production university. So in your opinion, how well does current education reflect the real demands of the market and industry?
It's a good question. I think it's a mix. So I went to a small school in Indiana, and they had a really good film program, actually. We did everything from writing. They taught us how to edit. We did directing. We worked with cameras. Like we did from pre-production, production, and post. We did all aspects. And we worked with a lot of industry professionals and had people that were working in Hollywood that came to our classes and taught us too. So I got a lot of inside knowledge that I think helped me prepare. Like I said, I even been working in the university or working in this industry as soon as I graduated university, because I think some people are kind of like, oh, you already know a bunch more than most people do when they graduate. At the same time, though, when I started working in Chicago, I worked on a TV show for NBC, and a lot of it you learn just working on the spot. Like they were saying things or asking me to do stuff that I was like, oh, I didn't learn this in school. I have no idea what you're talking about. But you learn fast, and people teach you. And so it was a good mix. It's like I knew a lot coming in, and then I learned a lot, especially my first year in Chicago working on a TV show.
I also have the same experience as yours. I was studying media production producer.
Hmm.
But I had an experience in the agency as a producer with bloggers. It's just, a commercial integration, bloggers' content, and also producing these commercial parts of video content. So
Right.
it was parallel my job and my study. And I understood that our study a little bit old. Everything has changed.
Even to this day, like I've been in this industry for 10 years now, and I feel like I'm still learning, especially with AI. It's like that's a whole new world now that we have to get, it's becoming part of our jobs.
What were your expectations about working in the industry while you were in the university?
I can only speak for myself, but I feel like a lot of us, especially when you go to film school, you're kind of like, oh, I'm going to see my movies in the theaters and I'm going to see my name in the credits, right? So I thought originally I was going to come out of college and write for like movies and, have my name on big screens. But the more I, worked in it, I realized I like TV. You get more to do. And then also with commercials, I kind of like the shorter projects, because the thing with movies is it's like, it could be up to years of your life, and then it's still a great product, but then you only have like one movie to show after years of work, versus like commercials and TV shows and podcasts and some of the things I've worked on. it's kind of nice to get a variety, and also the timelines are shorter. So sometimes you're like, oh my goodness, this production is insane, but like it's only for 3 months and then I get a break. Whereas like a movie, it could be 3 years and you're like, I'm so exhausted, I need a break. So yeah, I think as I've gotten in this industry and worked in it longer, my expectations have kind of changed. But the ultimate goal is still to write for TV and movies.
So you got first experience in NBC. Well, which projects were first?
So I worked for 2 years in the production office for Chicago PD, which they're still on today, actually. They have like Chicago PD, Chicago Fire, Chicago Med. I think there's it's probably going to be like Chicago Barista. I don't know. They have so many of those, different shows, but that's what I worked on. I was a production assistant and I was also an assistant to one of the directors. So I worked in the office a lot, but whenever he had an episode that he was directing, I would work on set and I would be with him on set and doing whatever he needed. I was just a sponge. I was just there to soak up all the knowledge, just be a fly on the wall, just watch everyone and, watch these professionals and the people who are at the top of their game, just see what they do and how they work.
You worked at M Factor for a considerable time. Their main focus is on out-of-home advertising. Is it correct?
Yep, that was correct.
Yeah, for example, for films such as Guardians of the Galaxy, or Loki, Avatar, and many others. You
Yep, yep.
also participating in brainstorming sessions there. Can you explain how the creative process is structured, specifically in out-of-home video advertising?
Yeah, it was an interesting, different twist for me too, because that was when I moved out to LA. I got my job at the M Factor. And like you said, it was out-of-home advertising. So they had a contract with Disney where Disney would come to them with a new film that they were promoting. And they would usually come to us and they would have a phone call and they would say, okay, like, here are some of the assets we have. Here's some of the stuff we can use. They would send us those assets and be like, they would give us a few days to be like, here are the assets. Come up with some interesting concepts based on these assets that you can do to promote our movie. And usually they would ask for like, it depended, sometimes up to 10 different things. And it's like they all wanted them to feel fresh, but you'd be using the same content for everything. So we would just literally all sit in a big circle in my boss's office and just throw out different ideas based on using the assets, like what we think we could do or make from that content.
You're free as creatives to make some new solutions for these advertising campaigns.
It was a mix. Some of the projects, they were very much like, this is kind of what you have to do, try to get creative in these parameters. And then, for example, like with the Mary Poppins that had Emily Blunt, I don't know if you remember that movie.
Yeah.
It came out a few years ago. So with that one, they came to us with that one and said, like, whatever you want to do, like nothing is off the table. We have Emily Blunt and Lin-Manuel for an entire 12 hours to shoot whatever we want. So they said, just tell us what you want them to do and we'll make sure it happens. So for that, we actually wrote a couple of original scripts and had them shoot some content. So that was like free to do whatever we wanted. So those instances were more rare, but there were times like that where they gave us stuff and they were like, just whatever you got, give it to us. Yeah, it was so great.
Make something creative.
Yeah, literally.
Freedom.
Yeah, that was like that. Those were like, oh my goodness, that was like Christmas. We're like, oh, thank you.
So, how did you present these ideas for the client?
So it was kind of maybe a three-part process is the best way to explain it. So the first process would be get on a phone call with the client, and they were like, this is the movie. This is kind of like the themes we're going for, the kind of stuff we're looking at. Second process would be us literally just going in a Google Doc and just writing a bunch of different ideas and being like, idea one, idea two, blah, 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 blah. Giving that to them and they would just highlight, okay, idea one, go further on. Idea four, go further on. So then they would pick maybe 3 to 5 for us to like really dive into. Then we would put those into a deck with some screenshots and, we would put some stuff together and basically it's not like full storyboards, but it was like, here's an idea of point A to point Z. This is kind of the structure and, a loose script. And then they would pick 1 or 2 based off of those. And they'd be like, okay, round 3, final, like show us what we're going to see in animation or production. And then that would get approved and we would go into production.
Did you work with the client directly or with their marketing agency?
Yeah, they had a marketing team specifically that would be like dedicated to that movie. And we would work with that team.
So I guess it was a little bit easy to explain the ideas to them because they're marketing guys.
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes if it was like a little more of a different concept, there would be times they would be like, what? Can we see some pictures or can you like give us a little example? And sometimes we had to do that just because they couldn't understand. But most of the time, a phone call was good.
were there any misunderstandings, like you made a total final video and they, what is it? We didn't
Well,
approve it.
fortunately, not in my time. The only thing that ever happened in my time was they paid for everything. We got approval. We sent them the final product, and then they didn't end up using it for some legal reasons on their end. Like we still got paid, we still did do the project, but it never saw the light of day.
Did you remember any campaigns that stand out from this ordinary advertising?
I remember specifically in terms of being challenging was the Aladdin movie we had to do a bunch of social media Instagram posts for them. And they wanted like it was like something like 15 Instagram posts. It was like a lot. And they gave us the content to use, and I remember looking at it and being like, not to be rude, but I was like, this is all we have, and we have to make like 15 posts. I was like, I had like three ideas, and after three ideas, I was like, I don't know, that's all we have. So that was kind of challenging to like, how do we use this little amount of content into a bunch of posts?
Did you participate in creating ideas or also in production, post-production process?
Honestly, both. So I was very fortunate that in my position, they would let me in the room and they took my ideas and I would throw out ideas and even write some of them myself. And then I would shadow the producers that worked at the M Factor and see how they would guide the production. Because when my title was there, I was assistant to the creative director and office coordinator. So I wasn't a producer yet. But I would shadow the producers and watch them oversee the production.
What inspires you those times to make great ideas?
Honestly, it's a lot of like, what do I want to see? Like, what am I tired of seeing? Because, there's always these trends that keep happening. And sometimes you're like, okay, that's getting old. I want to see something new. Or how can I take something that's hot right now and put a little bit of a twist on it that will be like different enough that gets people's attention, but also still feels like something that people want to watch. So I get inspired by that. Just like, what do I want to see when I'm going through social media or scrolling?
Can you give three advices for our listeners, especially for creative managers, how to make great ideas and stand out from ordinary advertising?
I think it's something that one of my bosses always told me where he was like steal great content, and he didn't actually mean like go and steal people's content, but he was like all day in his office he would have another monitor and he would just be playing commercials, short films. Like he just had content playing all day. Even if he was on calls or answering emails, he would just have stuff playing all day, and he was like, you have to see what's out there. You have to absorb all this different content, see what's working, see what's not working, grab from here, grab from there. So it's just basically like always absorbing. Sometimes my wife gets annoyed because we'll watch a TV show or a movie and I go, oh, like that's a good idea or that blah blah. Or even sometimes I'll do the opposite where I'm like, oh, what are they doing? And then I get like frustrated. And she's like, just watch it. Like you don't need to be a producer right now. You don't need to be a creative. Just enjoy what you're watching. But I'm still trying to like gather from different content. Don't be afraid to be brave and just try things. I think that's something too that like my wife has especially taught me. She's also a writer as well.
Oh,
And
great.
and so one thing
Creative
we
family.
Right, it's so nice. So one thing too is like we always let each other like if we get an idea for something, even if like we always just say like, okay, just it's kind of gross, but we say just go ahead and vomit. Just throw up, let it out, and then show me what you threw up, and I'll tell you if there's anything in there that's worth saving or keeping or you can push further. And we're very honest with each other. But it's like if you're too scared of like always having it be polished or always sounding like it's 100% correct, you're gonna always hold yourself back versus it's like, hey, here's a little concept, here's an idea. Maybe it's stupid, but maybe there's something we can pull from it. Just be brave and just keep pushing stuff out, and you're going to have some keepers in there.
Speaking about films and Factor, when working on out-of-home advertising for major blockbusters, how much control do film studios exercise over creative decisions?
Well, we worked a lot with Disney. That was our number one client. So they have 100% control. We didn't do anything without Disney giving us, I remember on their end, they had three different people that had to always give us the thumbs up and they all had to agree. So sometimes there were times that two of them would say yes and one of them would say no. And they would still be like, well, that's one no, so it's not happening. So that was always kind of a challenge where you had to get 100% like the green light on everything that we presented to them.
So the negotiating with the client is a very difficult process.
Yeah, yeah, especially the bigger they are. Like I said, with a name like Disney, who everybody knows no matter where you're from, it's like that's versus like if you work with some smaller company, like sometimes we did stuff with like candle fragrances or companies that weren't as big, and they would even be like, "Listen, we're gonna pay you. We trust you. You guys are the professionals. Just make it look good. Thank you." That was kind of nice because you get complete freedom. Yeah, sometimes it depended on the project. Sometimes you would be like I said, I want to be careful with how I word it, but sometimes it's like, okay, this is a big studio, this is a big movie, but at the end of the day, they only get a little chunk for like the out of home. So, we were sometimes get a number and be like, this is what we have to work with. And we're like, whoa, well, sometimes you're almost kind of working for free to get the project done. You're working later or working a weekend, but you're not charging the client because you're like, I still want to get them the best product, but like for the budget, we kind of are going to have to do some quote free work.
You are currently working on film studios. What types of projects are you producing here? Production, post-production, animation?
So honestly, all of it. I'm involved from pre-production to production to post. And then the nice thing about Fin Studios is we've done TV shows, we've done podcasts, we've done commercials, we've done shorts. The only thing we haven't done is a movie, but we've kind of done like even radio spots we've done like for Spotify and stuff like that. So I've honestly produced so many different forms of media while I've been here at Fin.
Do you have any favorite types of projects? For example, commercials or animation?
Yeah, honestly, I just got done recently with producing. I was like show running basically the TV show for a new pickleball show with Paul Shear. It was called the Pickle Program. So
Wow, so cool.
yeah, we got the green light for 2 episodes. So we went and shot those, and we did everything from literally pre-production all the way to post, and we shot everything, and that was super challenging but super fun to like actually create a TV show from scratch. I participated from everything, literally from pitching the show to the client all the way to shooting it and post production. I was the producer on every aspect
Wow,
of it.
great. My congratulations.
Thank you.
But it's not the first projects where you use a general producer.
No, no, I've done a bunch of producing, but this was probably the biggest scale in the sense that like it was a lot of money, it was a TV show, and it's like creating a show. Usually like when we come in, it's like, okay, here's the concept, go ahead and make it happen. It's like they didn't even have a concept. They just said, "We want a TV show for pickleball. Like, what do you got?" And so we just had to like brainstorm a bunch of ideas, and it started from there all the way to like I said, we did two whole episodes.
I guess it was the first important pitching in your career.
Yeah, honestly, it was a lot of trust. I appreciated, like I said, my company and my bosses. They were like, "Hey, it's gonna be a lot, but like, are you down to basically run a TV show?" And of course, I had help, and we had a great team, but there's a lot of long nights, weekends. It was a challenge, but it was really fun and something that I still like really appreciate that I got to do.
How was the pitching process organized by your side? So, how do you understand how to pitch it? What ideas you should put in your presentation? How to gain the client's attention?
Yeah, that's a great question. So luckily we have, like I said, I work for a studio, so we have a team of designers, editors, animators, writers. Like we even hired some writers too, some comedians because we knew we wanted it to be comedy no matter what. It was like it's pickleball, like no offense to anybody that plays pickleball, but we're like it's kind of a funny sport if you think about it. So we're like it has to be a comedy. So originally, like I said, the client came to us. We had worked with them on the tennis channel Warm and Fuzzy. So we already had a previous relationship with them. They called us one day and they're like, "Hey, I know we're called the Tennis Channel, but pickleball is getting really popular." They started a pickleball like league. So they were like, "We want a show that gets people excited for pickleball, and we kind of want something out there that's going to pull in younger audiences too." So when they came with us with that, we put together a deck where we had a bunch of ideas. We put together some like, design boards, mood boards, some scripts, and we pitched them this deck and we showed them a bunch of different ideas where like, you can do a talk show, you could do a game show. There was an idea for almost like a bunch of different mini games. So we just pitched them a bunch of different ideas, and ultimately we landed on kind of like a talk show with some games and different segments.
Were there several rounds of negotiating, of pitching, or it was like green light after the first pitching?
Oh no, I wish. No, can you imagine? No, it was so the first one was basically like I said, it was almost kind of like what we did at M Factor, where at first we gave them a Google Doc and we're like, okay, here's just some high level concepts. And then once you pick something in the area, then we'll dive deeper. So that was the first process. And then when they came back and picked some ones to go deeper in, we put those into a deck and we kind of, like I said, we made them a little bit more in depth. And
Mhm.
then they picked two from there. And then those two we dove really deep into, broke out like some logos that we could have, some different possible casting options we could have for like host and guest, and different things that could be in those shows. And then ultimately they chose the talk show. And then when they chose the talk show, we did one more round of like fully in depth of like, this is who we think who would be the host. These are ideas for each episode. Cause like I said, we got two episodes. So we wrote both episodes of like, here's the segments that are going to be in each episode. Here's like some of the footage we could possibly film, some of the segments we could go film. And we really broke those in depth. And then they went ahead and greenlit that. Yeah. Yeah. I was, like I said, I was even sitting on editing sessions when we were in post, and like we had a really talented team. And luckily, like I said, I got the liberty to even be in there and tell them, cut that or try adding some jokes here, and having a lot of say too in the editing process. So it honestly, it really feels like my baby. I was like, I birthed it, I watched it grow legs, I watched it start walking and go out into the world, and I feel like a proud papa.
You mentioned the Tennis Channel project, so I also checked it, and as I understand, you were there as a post-production producer.
Who's on season one? I love a question like that.
Oh, you guys got renewed?
That's what I'm talking about! Also, this guy's back.
Buster. No.
You weren't even on the tour when season one happened.
Yep, I only worked on the post of that one, but we did. They ordered. I want to. It's been a couple of years, so forgive me, but I believe it was 40 episodes they wanted. They were like 5 minutes each, and so it was just like Q&As with the different tennis stars. But of course, once again, it was comedy and it was a lot of visual effects, and we added different graphics to that. And so yeah, memes, and made it, tried to make it lighthearted and fun. And I remember the same thing with that. I would sit in an edit bay with, we had editors for different episodes. So I would bounce back and forth between different edit bays and different editors and just be like, I would watch the cuts and give them notes and feedback, and post produce that way, and be like, we need to add some cuts here. We need to add some animation here, sound effects, and did that for 40 episodes. So that was a challenge, but that was really fun too.
How does the approach to post-production of entertainment content differ from working on other projects?
Funny thing is like you have to have a sense of humor even in the edit bay, because you can definitely make it less funny or even more funny when you're in post, right? You cut down, you have to have timing, you have to have a good comedic sensibility. So that was one thing too, is that they were like, we had to choose editors that were also funny by themselves and that knew how to cut comedy, because it's a different skill set to cut a comedy versus drama, or even just a commercial, where it's like there's kind of, some formulas to the different editing and the different genres. And so that was like you had to put a different hat on. You're like, okay, this is like something that we would do here that's funny, like I would never do for like Nike or someone like that, where it's like if I sent that to them, they would be like, what are you doing? Is this a joke?
Let's
Like,
put a meme here, yeah.
right, exactly. So sometimes you had to be like, okay, this is only okay. I can do this now. Like any other project, this would be like, I would be a crazy person, but it's okay to do it here. So yeah, having to put a different hat on and think differently I honestly really enjoyed it. Sometimes I was even like, is this too ridiculous? But then we send it to the
That's
client. And they would laugh or they would love it. And I was like, okay, woof, like we're.
So the show features many memes, as we mentioned. Did you have a dedicated editor for these elements?
Yeah, so we had it was like this huge like sheet we put together per episode. And basically we would give them the time code, and we had a animation team that also worked with us. And so sometimes we had a really talented editors that could do some of it by themselves. But then some of the more advanced stuff or that required more, we would go to the animation team. And it was like, it's kind of funny because all these jokes came from like a spreadsheet. And it's like, okay, here's the time code. Here's like a little screenshot of where we want it. And then we would put a description in there like, this is what we're looking for. Like, come up with something that's like, put a meme here that shows, a monkey on a unicycle or something like that. And you put that in the notes, and then the animators would go do it, and then they would put a link in there and be like, okay, tell me what you think of this. And they would send me an animation of like a monkey and a unicycle. And sometimes I'd be like, that's perfect, let's put it in. Or sometimes I look at it, and sometimes I would laugh because my notes would be super ridiculous. I'd be like, can the monkey have a longer tail? And it's like, I can't believe I'm getting paid to put notes like this. But, things like that. And that's how we got a lot of those in there too.
Was it difficult to negotiate with the client with these final cuts, with this, it's a good humor, here's a bad meme?
Actually, it was surprisingly easier than I expected. A lot of times that they would come back and be like, we would also do it in chunks. So sometimes we would send them 5 episodes at a time just to not overwhelm them. Or like, here's 5 episodes. We would give them like a round of, okay, notes per episode. Sometimes they would honestly be like, even to the first round, they would be like, oh, episode 1 is perfect. Like, go ahead. Episode 2, here's a couple of notes. Episode 3, like just one note. And we would only do like maybe one round or two at the most, because it was also like 45 episodes. So you're like, you kind of have to keep going. A lot of times, especially as we got toward the end, it's like once we started to get our rhythm and we kind of developed the formula for how it was going to go, a lot of times the client was like, yep, perfect, that's great, let's do it, lock it. And then, like I said, it was never anything extensive.
So we talked a lot of TV shows. Did you participate in any TV commercials as a producer or post-production producer?
Yeah, that's honestly where a lot of that's how I say I pay the bills. That's how I pay my rent. Is a lot of most of my producing is TV commercials. Because it comes from that for like, a bunch of different clients. I've worked with like ESPN, TaylorMade, DirecTV, even Under Armour, people like that.
Wow, great. So what is your favorite commercial and why?
Ooh, favorite commercial. That's a good question. There was a commercial we did with ESPN with Caitlin Clark. And it's kind of like her looking into a mirror, and you see her like younger self in the mirror, and she's basically like empowering herself. She's like, I know things can be hard, but remember, while you're doing this, remember you love the sport. And like, it just felt like a great message. And it was also like, okay, especially like a year ago when we did it, Caitlin Clark was like, everybody knew her name. So it was kind of cool on that scale. It's like, I know a bunch of people saw it too. And it was just cool to like get something that was like a bunch of people saw. It was a good message. And we were really proud of the commercial and how it came out. And like I said, ESPN, after it came out, we're like, you guys killed it. You crushed it. And it just felt really good to work on that.
Evident by her emotional post-game press conference.
I want my legacy to be the impact that I can have on young kids. I was just that young girl, so all you have to do is dream that you can be in moments like this.
How will Caitlin Clark continue to push women's basketball
Every
forward?
kid wants to be heard. She's completely
immensely
changed.
strong. Built for this, but how much
I understand we came up 1 win short.
A generational player comes with a lot of responsibility.
I think we have a lot to be proud of.
You have everything to be proud of. I'm super proud. There's so much more we need to do. We're Caitlin Clark. This is just the beginning.
State Farm is proud to cover greatness. Full Court Press. Stream now on ESPN+.
Which is the biggest your TV commercial, maybe the biggest budget or biggest process?
Biggest budget, biggest process. In terms of biggest process I would say the biggest process was pickleball, even though that wasn't a commercial. That, like I said, was half a year, and that was like long nights, weekends, and that was one of the few times that I was actually only working on one thing at once. Usually I work on like I try to stay at 6 max, like 6 projects at a time. I try not to go over that. So that was the first time in a long time where I was just doing one thing for an entire, like 6 months. So biggest process would have been that for me. And then what's the second one?
Budget?
Honestly, it's kind of surprising, but we did one with the Under Armour for The Rock. He had like all this new workout equipment coming out, and we did the production and the post-production for that. And it was like, I forget how many assets it was. It was like out of home, it was social, it was like we even did like a little short with him. that budget was, I almost was like, oh, this is way too much money for what we're doing. I'm like, I hope the client doesn't watch this, but I was like, wow, this is an insane budget. That was a lot. I don't even remember the number, but it was definitely in the millions.
I remember one producer told me about $300,000 per day, more or less.
No, no, that sounds about right, especially depending on who you're working with. Like I said, I used to recently just worked with Anna Kendrick, and it was just a 30-second commercial and a 15-second cut down from that, and that was like a couple $1 million for that. And it's just like insane how much money.
Big money.
Yeah, yeah.
How AI technologies influencing the video production field? Are you implementing these tools in your projects?
Yeah, so AI is like a tricky one, right? Because there's still like a lot we're learning about it from like a legal standpoint and like what's fair use. And like that's one thing that I really appreciate about Fin Studios where I work now is like we're trying to be graceful and ride that line of like we don't want to use AI and cause anybody their jobs. Like that's not what we're after. Like humans make the best content for humans, right? Like there's just something about a human when we're writing or making anything creative. The AI just it can't replicate emotion, it can't replicate heart like a human can. But at the same time, AI works really fast and it works a lot cheaper. Like that's kind of just the harsh reality. It's like sometimes you could pay a storyboard artist, thousands of dollars to write, to make like 10 frames of a
20 bucks
storyboard.
for ChatGPT, yeah.
Right, or right, you go in ChatGPT, you just put a prompt, and there you go. They'll give you like 20 frames, and you're like, wow, okay, and it kind of does a good job, and you're like, oh damn, oops,
Yeah.
like that's not good. So we're
Sorry,
trying to
dude.
find. Right, like oh my bad, man. Like yeah, I know, hitting me up like, hey, you got any work for me? And I'm like, maybe. I don't know. AI is really good now, so we're trying to find that balance. We've used it a little bit in terms of like we only use it for scratch voiceover, so it's not voiceover that we're going to use in the final product, but
Draft.
sometimes we'll just give client an idea like do you want a male, do you want a female, do you want them to sound like, do you want them to have more timbre, do you want them to sound more soft? So we've been doing that a lot recently is we use AI VO, and then we're like, if you like the sound of this, we'll go and cast a real person, and this will be kind of their reference of like this is what the client was liking. Go ahead and do your record now with a real human that's kind of getting this idea. Same with honestly with storyboards too. We'll kind of give like we'll do an AI very very rough version. Like we'll be like here's just like for like a quick little concept to see if you like it, and then if the client says yes, I want to see like a full storyboard, build it out, we'll go and hire an artist to actually do that, and we'll be like here was the AI, and then sometimes they're like I don't give a fuck, get that out of here, I'll go ahead and do my own thing. Or sometimes they look at it and they're like okay cool, and it's like just a reference for them, and they'll go and build something original or use that. But kind of that balance of like AI is here to help us, but at the same time, like I said, we don't want to cost anybody a job, and there's stuff that humans can just do better.
Maybe any AI life hacks during post-production in editing?
Surprisingly, yes, especially for when we did the pickleball because it was multicam. So we had 3 cameras set up. And one thing that was like actually a real time saver is because you're filming from 3 different cameras. So usually this was the first time we had done this. You get an assistant editor, they're logging and loading, and they're having to go and like manually sync everything so that you can go to shot 1, go to shot 3, go to shot 2, and it's everything's still in sync. We found there was an AI that went ahead and synced everything, and then it even went in as extra step and it cut out all the extra like in between takes, or if people were just like, oh, I messed that up, or like they were flubbing, it was somehow able to count that too, and it would go ahead and mark all that out. So the assistant editor would still go through and just to watch and make sure it was right. And if it was, they would go, okay, get rid of that, or okay, that's synced. And it saved us so much time in the process of getting all the footage. Like I was
add-on for DaVinci or something?
It was for Premiere. I don't exactly know what the plugin was, but we were editing in Premiere, and I know that was like they were talking about it and they were like nerding out.
Have you any instruments for editing? For example, with stops when nobody's speaking.
Yeah, it did that too. Actually, it was like because a lot of times too, just to especially on set, you keep rolling through takes, and then we would just put a slate in there and be like take 2, but we never like cut the camera. We just kept it rolling. And it did a good job of picking up too. It'd be like, okay, this is dead space. This was just like the crew talking in between takes. And I still don't understand how that works, but it would be right. It's like, okay, none of this is usable. This was just us like, okay, on the second take, try this, blah, blah, blah. And just like all the internal stuff. And it caught that and it would tag it and be like, okay, you don't need this. And it's like, like I said, I still to this day, I'm like, that's witchcraft. I don't understand how it did that, but it did.
It's very helpful. So you don't need to spend your time as an editor for this
Right.
stupid actions. Yeah, you
Right.
want to make more creative things, and it
Yeah.
helps you to just forget about this. Cut.
Right, right. You're like, okay, here's all the takes we have that are usable. Let's make creative decisions on what we want to do. And you get rid of all that extra legwork.
So what do you find most challenging when working on post-production projects?
Most challenging, I think, honestly, is a lot of times it's the timeline. You know, it's like clients give you like, this is when we need the final delivery. And sometimes it's like, I don't know if it's their media plans or what they have, but it feels like they always want the, you know, yesterday. And sometimes you're like, it takes time. Like we have to color, we have to mix, we still have to edit, we have to go through rounds of revisions. And sometimes it's like building those schedules to where the client feels happy. And then your team, it doesn't feel like they're overworked or having to work like, you know, 16-hour days and working weekends. Because it's like at the same time, you get the best when your team is refreshed and when they're excited. And it's like if you run them into the ground, you're almost going to start to see it in the final. You're going to be like, oh, we started missing things, or that could have been better. So I think timeline to me is always the thing of like make client happy, but make sure the team feels they have enough time to get things done.
And do you prefer more shooting days or post-production hours in the office?
It depends in the project. Sometimes it's really fun to be on set because you're like, oh, this is like this, the magic is happening. And then sometimes you're on set and you're like, okay, it's 1 a.m. and like, I'm tired. I want to go home. At least in post, it's sometimes nice because you're in a dark edit bay and you're like, oh, okay, I can just lay back and let the editor do their thing.
And more stable and fixed hours because you start, for example, from 10 to 6 p.m., for example. Yeah.
Exactly. And then you're like, I'm not answering you after 7 p.m. Like I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm up. Exactly.
And when you're on set, you should answer.
Exactly. They're right next to you. You can't ignore them.
So how have your views on the industry changed from when you graduated university to today? Was it the match between your expectations and reality?
I definitely got a reality check. I was like, I mean, I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but it's like it's a grind. You're going to have to be in it for a long time and learn from a lot of different people. And, you know, also too, like I said, university, I felt like 4 years, it was a good film school. I learned a lot. And then even just my first year in Chicago working on a TV show, I was like, there's a lot I don't know. And even to this day, like I said, I've been in this industry for 10 years and I'm still learning. And even with AI being introduced, there's still a lot to learn there. And I think it's just like being humble. I got humble to like, hey, I'm never going to know all of it. And there's always going to be people to learn from. And that's it's collaborative, right? It's not like when you're a movie director, you did everything by yourself. It's like you have teams of people that you learn from that are great at what they do. And that's, I think, something too that I always remember is like there's people that are good at their different areas of expertise, and that's okay to rely on them. And I'm not going to know everything.
Very thankful for your time and that you share with me and with the audience your thoughts about the industry, your insights. It was very helpful, very interesting talk.
I guess just like some parting wisdom would just be like, look, it's not easy. There's going to be some days where you're like, there's long hours, there's weekends, you know, like I said, it can be challenging, but at the end of the day, it's fun, it's rewarding, it's creative, and you know, like there's a lot of stuff that like I would not have been able to do, places I wouldn't have been able to visit, people that I worked with that like it's great, and it's all because of you work in this industry and you work with some really great people. So I think just enjoy it, have fun, and remember it's collaborative, and there's a lot of great people working in this industry.